let's set the record straight. There's no argument over the choice between peace and war, but there's only one guaranteed way you can have peace, and you can have it in the next second: surrender. Admittedly, there's a risk in any course we follow other than this, but every lesson of history tells us that the greater risk lies in appeasement. And this is the specter our well-meaning liberal friends refuse to face, that their policy of accommodation is appeasement. And it gives no choice between peace and war, only between fight or surrender. If we continue to accommodate, continue to back and retreat, eventually we have to face the final demand, the ultimatum. And what then? Well, Nikita Khrushchev has told his people he knows what our answer will be. He has told them that we're retreating under the pressure of the Cold War, and someday, when the time comes to deliver the final ultimatum, our surrender will be voluntary, because by that time, we will have been weakened from within spiritually, morally, and economically. He believes this because from our side he's heard voices pleading for peace at any price, or better read than dead, or as one commentator put it, he'd rather live on his knees than die on his feet. And therein lies the road to war, because those voices don't speak for the rest of us. You and I know and do not believe that life is so dear and peace so sweet as to be purchased at the price of chains and slavery. If nothing in life is worth dying for, when did this begin? Just in the face of this enemy? Or should Moses have told the children of Israel to live in slavery under the Pharaohs? Should Christ have refused the cross? Should the patriots at Concord Bridge have thrown down their guns and refused to fire the shot heard round the world? The martyrs of history were not fools. And our honored dead, who gave their lives to stop the advance of the Nazis, didn't die in vain. Where then is the road to peace? Well, it's a simple answer after all. You and I have the courage to say to our enemies, there is a price we will not pay. There is a point beyond which they must not advance. Winston Churchill said the destiny of man is not measured by material computations. When great forces are on the move in the world, we learn they're spirits, not animals. And he said there's something going on in time and space and beyond time and space, which, whether we like it or not, spells duty. You and I have a rendezvous with destiny. We'll preserve for our children this, the last best hope of men on earth, or we'll sentence them to take the last step into 1,000 years of darkness.
Welcome back to the Logbook podcast.
Hey, y'all. How's it going? I'm Dakota. That's Kimberly. You know who we are.
Yes, thank you so much. We'd like to thank Common Denominator Network, and of course our viewers for tuning in tonight. We have a very special guest tonight, and who we'll bring on later, but let's go ahead and get it over with.
In other news, we start off today with some sad news this evening. Martin Solomon, a World War II D-Day veteran, passed away earlier this week at the age of 102, bringing the greatest generation closer to its end. Fair winds and following seas.
Yeah, you may just step down, sir. We have the watch. The interesting thing about him, he was one of the last survivors that actually stormed D-Day beach on Normandy. We actually went to that beach in Normandy. Believe it or not, we were drunk the whole time.
Yeah, I found 3 relatives.
Yeah. It's really weird because, Japanese American here, I have family fighting on both sides. I'd like to thank those brave men and women too, because I honestly would not exist if it wasn't for World War II. On to other news. NORAD released a statement earlier that they detected, tracked, and positively identified 4 Russian aircraft this week in the Alaskan Air Defense's identification zone. They did not enter American or Canadian airspace, by the way, but yet they were intercepted. This is becoming more frequent in Alaska, not only in air, but also in water. I guarantee you, Americans, you need to pay attention to these alerts.
Wow. Yeah, absolutely, yes. Other news. Along with several balloons and unidentified flying objects, China has fired a green laser over Hawaii, according to NASA. Reminds me of that old Navy legend of the green flash. Whenever you saw that green flash come across the horizon at sunset, it meant a ship came back from the dead or something. It looks like China's trying to resurrect pirates from Davy Jones's locker. That's
and they'll do it through Disney because obviously that was a pirate.
That makes so much sense now.
Yeah. Yeah. There you go. U.S. Central Command tweeted Wednesday on February 10th, a raid with partnering forces killed Ibrahim al-Qahtani, who was planning an attack on the ISIS detention center where 10,000 detainees are housed. And that's in Syria, I believe.
Syria, yes.
Yeah, I think it's Syria. So if they're retreating anywhere like our justice system, I'm pretty sure they would be released immediately and probably head toward the border.
Best place to go if you're running. Another intruder breached Joint Base Andrews in base housing, and a resident discharged a firearm. However, Biden does not object to security on Air Force One base and loves his own walls, but no walls for us peasants.
Double standard right there. We bring you some more tragic news this week. A Black Hawk helicopter crashed in Alabama, Huntsville, Alabama, and I believe it was near Highway 53, instantly killing 2 pilots. We'd like to say our prayers are with the family of there. We're with also with the command and their friends in this tragic event.
Yeah. Keep them in your prayers. I know we will.
Yes, we will.
To turn things around, social justice warriors are pretty pissed off.
Oh, yeah.
That the new GOP bill would prohibit transgenders from serving in the military if they don't meet certain criteria. Wouldn't that be the same criteria we have to meet in order to own a firearm?
Probably. But I was just wondering on the transgender issue is like you need a certain amount of hormones and things like that. How would you be able to receive those hormones on a deployment? And
keep mental stability?
I'm sorry. And mental illness and God, they don't go together.
Not really, no.
Well, we are conservative viewers, and we also love our Democrat viewers. We had one on this week. Absolutely fantastic, Mr. Larry Cox. Thank you for your respect and your dialogue. It was, I love freedom of speech in all forms, and I will protect your right to have it. However, just know there are consequences, and I have nothing to do with that. Also, in that being said, the host of the Daily Wire, Michael Knowles, came against the United States military and his lack of information and called aviation maintainers a social justice, what would I say, platform for the LGBTQ.
The first Super Bowl moment in which I'm told U.S. Navy sailors were forced to dress in pride flag colors during the national anthem.
And lights gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright.
Oh no! Oh my goodness!
Through the pale.
I thought you would just mean in the stadium. You're saying on a ship, they had to put on the pride flag. A lot of Navy jokes opening up here. There's an apocryphal quote from Winston Churchill, which says that naval tradition is nothing but rum, soda. This is not going to help the poor sailors standing when they're having a few drinks with people from the other branches. You know, that's not going to help that they got to wear the. That's not very nice. These guys are going out there. They're sacrificing their time. They're serving their country. They're risking their lives, and the National Football League is forcing them to really lean into a lot of gay jokes.
Sorry, had Had to. It was an opportunity there. I'm a big fan of musicals, but however, I sing in the key of Q, and you're welcome.
Hey, United States Navy, global force for good times.
There you go. Unfortunately, Michael Knowles and his staff there at the Daily Wire really screwed the pooch with that. Those are maintainer uniforms. However, when we stand in formation, usually we stand with our commands. It's not a flag, as you can see, that there were slices within their supposed rainbow flag there. Let's see. I was a green shirt. I think PC is white or yellow. There's your brown shirts, your purple shirts. I remember fuelers. And same, by the way, those same colored shirts also are the same color the pipes in the ship for aviation fuel, by the way.
Mm-hmm. And the fact that he's bringing up standing in line to make like stripes and a flag, they're in rank and file. When it comes to standing in straight lines, military's got everybody beat. That's what we do.
The uniform isn't just a piece of cloth, guys. Uniform is also how we stand and how we line up. These are absolutely normal pictures. They have been doing them for decades. What you have to understand is that on a flight deck, we can't talkie-talkie, okay? It's all hand signals, you know. Here's the famous one we did, you know, bullshit. You know, that's how you do it. And colors matter. Okay.
Yeah, there's a reason they wear those colored shirts. Sorry. Sorry.
I know what reference you're
No,
making.
just a slip of the tongue.
It doesn't really make sense because you don't call them collared people. That's offensive.
All right. Well, that covers that. Ask Google. It's all over Google. Michael Knowles, I will say this. Don't give the Navy any ammunition, okay? Because they will do that. I know probably many sailors are already making fun of you for it. But in that news, be careful again, because now FOD walkdowns might be called pride parades. Okay, on to VA news, because it's off. Johnson & Johnson and DuPont, I think that's how you say it, DuPont, poached a doctor to push Big Pharma. Dakota, go ahead and talk about that.
Big Pharma, within Veteran Affairs, and has resolved to pay $9.7 million backs. A doctor who performed surgeries even overseas, mainly the Middle East, performed allegedly 20 surgeries with the free products to win business and boost his bottom line.
So basically, breakdown is this doctor was offered free products from Johnson & Johnson and DuPont, and he was allowed to perform surgeries with these thousands of dollars products, however, getting kickbacks for pushing the stuff from Big Pharma. However, they didn't go to court. They had resolved a settlement for $9.75 million in these kickbacks.
Insane. Why is there a VA doctor in the Middle East anyway?
I heard that he went to Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Lebanon, United Arab Emirates, and Qatar.
Maybe he went there to get his subtitles. Maybe he
Subtitles.
did his subtitles, yes.
I just went to the bloody University of Cairo.
Cairo.
It brings the question, who were they performing surgeries on? It's a VA doctor in Qatar. United Arab Emirates? You think they can't afford it? Come on now. Curtis Lee Moran was sentenced to 12 months in jail for threatening VA employees earlier this month. Mainly, he's stating he wanted to kill the doctors. He called the White House hotline as well, begging for help, and also continued with his threats. However, the United States Attorney's Office did not tell us why he made those threats. Mr. Moran, God bless you. I actually hope you get the medical care you need.
Michael Angelo Padrone, a construction company owner, was convicted for leading a group of co-conspirators in a scheme to defraud a small business administration of over $240 million in contracts reserved for service-disabled veteran-owned small businesses in San Antonio, Texas. he was sentenced to 27 months in prison in order to pay a $1.75 million fine after a jury found him guilty of conspiracy to defraud the United States and wire fraud. So that doesn't make a lot of sense. He stole $240 million, but he's only fined.
See, that's the problem when we
$175
look
million.
into these reports. This was actually on reported in the VA OIG, and it was on the news in San Antonio. However, so his name is Michelangelo.
Right.
Was he doing ceiling work?
Was he doing ceiling? He may have been doing some ceiling work. Or no, he may be a plumber down in the sewers. Who knows? A little kung fu action.
Well, rat scheme there.
Yeah.
So, moving on. I just have a question though. When they said that they defrauded, they never told us how much money was actually taken.
Really?
In those reports.
So, really, they only reported $240.
It seems like it looked like, but it was not clear that it was a scheme. I don't know how successful they were on it, and it doesn't say that. So
okay.
I think I was going to request have a FOIA to discover those details. 5 VA reforms passed last kangaroo session in the federal government. Our friends at Concern for Veterans for America have given us those 5 things. Number 1,
Why don't you feel dumb?
wait time calculations into law. So supposed time scandal of last time, VA moved back to that scandal and gave proposed times instead of what the true time was when the veteran was requested. So we do not know when these laws will take effect.
2, look at you.
Creating self-scheduling for community care. Some of you might know is that we actually have to call the VA, wait a few days, have a community care provider call us. They give us a list of community care providers in our area or don't. And it's become a complete nightmare.
More than likely, they don't.
And you only have 7 days to do this. And if they don't call you within that 7 days, you lose that appointment.
3, don't you ever make no jokes about me behind my back, otherwise I stomp you in the ground.
Improving telehealth options because of the pandemic. Telehealth has become more popular, especially for the common cold. But however, if you do use telehealth, you'll still have to wait 2 weeks to get your medication sent to you. Establishing more data transparency passed as well. There is a backlog of VA FOIA requests. There is a backlog of even patient advocate requests for people to get their answers, or veterans to get the answers that they require. And then, of course, which moves into that, is reducing the backlog of FOIA requests that the VA has endured. So that wraps us up on VA convoluted
news. Yes.
Guys, on that, if you want more details on it, they are on our webpage. All of this information is posted, so you can confirm and verify. Which brings us to our
guest tonight, everybody. If we went through all of his accolades, it would take up the entirety of this program. But to get to a few key points, Lieutenant Colonel Dr. Pete Chambers.
bring it up.
Yeah.
Hi, Doc. How you doing? Oh, you're muted. Let me get that.
Okay, there we go. Sorry, I'm happy to be alive. Doing good.
Fantastic. Well, Doc, as I said before we brought you up, the life you lived is truly incredible. I mean, you serve your country, and after your first discharge, you go to medical school, become a doctor, and then a sad day for everyone is 9/11 happened, but you rose to the call and came back into the armed services through special forces as a Green Beret, no doubt. You were a flight surgeon, and then through all of the adversity with this COVID vaccine, you stood up and you did the right thing into making sure that your soldiers had informed consent before they went and they got this jab.
Right.
And just a fantastic story that you have. And but first of all, how are you?
I'm doing good. I'm like a one-legged man in a butt kicking contest right now.
Prove your story.
Try that sometime. Hold your knee up and try to kick. Yeah, I mean, it's it's been a go since 1983. I was a private E1, 18-year-old. I had no idea what I was going to do other than carry a rifle. And then got out, went to college, and thought I would use that money that they gave me to do something, and became a doctor. Imagine that. So, then 9/11, that was a big deal, and we shortly found myself downrange, working with Green Berets, what I consider the best of the best. We have all the branches have their own special operations. Our flavor is just a little bit different in that we specialize in unconventional warfare, which I could tell you right now, and you probably know this, we're currently in. This is just called 5th generation warfare. We'll probably get into that. But then when I was working on the border, Texas, Mexico, with the Texas National Guard as their task force surgeon, and the shots came along, I said, y'all don't need to take it. So we had 3,000 some odd soldiers come on at that time, and I would do them in rooms of, I'd give informed consents in rooms of 300, 400, 500 at a time. And nobody was signing up for it after I told them, you're young, you've got a great chance of doing just fine. Don't take it. And, they didn't. And very few did. And that, made the command upset. And then one day, a 2-star general who resigned after we got him in a little trouble down there in a federal court case. But he resigned. But he told me, and I'm going to give it to you exactly how he said it. He said, Doc, it ain't about the science, it's about the policy. I just said, well, that doesn't make a lick of sense, sir. I mean, and I had a 1-star standing behind him and a 06 colonel standing behind him. And they were looking at me, and they kind of were listening to me, but he wouldn't at all. And I just said, well, that's an unlawful order, sir, and I can't follow that. Now, my mustache at the time was out of regs. And so he came back with, well, if you're a regulation guy, well, look at your mustache. It's out of regs. And I said, well, it's a good comeback.
It's always got something, right?
And I said, you got me there. However, and at that point, I had 39 years in the active guard and reserves. I really didn't, I didn't get nervous around command. I always treated them with respect. I've worked and briefed all the way up to the Speaker of the House in his office and on Capitol Hill. I don't get nervous about talking to people of importance because I treat them with respect as they should me. But when it comes to that moment of truth, and Army value number 7 is called personal courage. If you don't exhibit that, then you're not really living those Army values. And I had the regulations behind me. They didn't have to take it if it was an emergency use, and they still don't. The mandate's been lifted, and that's a good thing. But it's easy to do the right thing when you just follow the regs, but it's hard sometimes on your career because they stopped my specialty pays. They took away my TRICARE without me knowing, and I ended up having to buy it back again. I mean, these are things that shadow policies, we call them, that are still going on. They've been going on since I was a private in 1983. But see, back then, when they said private chambers, dig a hole the size of your body and then put the dirt over there and then move it over here 6 hours later, well, that was for a reason. It taught me a lesson. For whatever I did wrong, I don't remember, but I remember the hole. And that was a shadow policy. There's nothing in writing that says that's something they can do, but they did it, and it had a positive effect ultimately. But these shadow policies are resulting in soldiers dying, resulting in sailors, airmen, Marines being damaged permanently, being sterile, trying to have children. These are things that as a doctor, I didn't sign on for. There's a Hippocratic oath for a reason.
So one of my questions that I had for you is, everyone's very familiar with your story. I've watched a lot of your interviews. One question I asked you is, what made you join the military?
I came from a long line of military and people that had served, and it was just kind of a thing that I knew it was going to happen when I joined at 18 or 17 when I joined, but 18 by the time I got to basic. But yeah, I've been always been proud of this country. To me, the national anthem and those things are real. They mean something. I put 21 soldiers in a body bag downrange and had to put a flag draped coffin, put them in that and send them home to Dover. Yeah, that means a little bit more when you've done that. And so I'll defend it, but I'll also defend people's rights to, not respect it. But that's up to them.
We swore to the Constitution. It's very similar with on my family has served in this country since the Revolution, and then served obviously in World War II. I'm here, and that's how your family was.
Yeah. So same as started serving since the Revolution as well, and yeah, all the way up. And we're a big Navy family on my side.
I'm all Marine and Navy.
Yeah.
That's it. My dad was recon in the 80s and 90s, and he was in Desert Shield. Then he moved on, and he works as a contractor up in. Can't really talk about that anymore. So he left the military, and 9/11 happened. What was going through your head at that? Because that's when I joined. That was my motivation for joining the armed forces.
Yeah, for me, the motivation was, I've always been a soldier, and I was an infantry guy and a paratrooper and all those things. We did the hard stuff. We were at the pointy end of the spear typically. And so back then, though, in the 80s and 90s, there wasn't really a lot going on. Gulf War was very, very quick. And I was actually in medical school at the time and had thought about getting out of medical school to go back, but it happened. It ended before I could even make that process happen. But I always felt like that if anything ever happened, that I would go back and just do whatever it is that I was doing. Well, I just happened to be a doctor, so it worked out well that I was able to be back at the pointy end of the spear, working with Green Berets, but also in Special Operations Task Force, where we had all the branches working together. So I took care of all branches. So yeah, it was a labor of love, but that's where I belonged. I grew up in that. That's my family.
Yeah, my brother was in the Marine Corps, and then when 9/11 happened, I remember my dad coming home, and he just that deathly silent, and he just started cleaning his guns, and then he wanted to go back in so bad, but he was too old, and my brother was in there, and then I remember I was like, it's my turn to go, and like I'm not having two children at the same time. You're all I got. No. So I had to wait for my brother to exit from the Marine Corps, and then it was my turn to go in. So I came in a little late, and then met this youngster here.
Yeah, as far as September 11th, I was 11 years old when that happened, so I really don't have much memory of it actually happening because by the time I saw anything, the buildings had already dropped down to the floor. When I saw it on the news, I thought it looked like an apartment building that had caught on fire, and it was so low to the ground. And I didn't really know exactly what happened until the next day when my teachers in school were talking about it. My own family didn't even talk about it. It's it was a sad day. It was a really sad day for everybody.
Yeah, that's some of the conflict. He was a child still. I was 17 when it happened, and I literally watched everyone get out of my high school early and enlist. I remember the line for the enlistment went around the building. After 9/11, I remember them letting people graduate early and everything a year early. And when they walked in their uniform. It was hard to watch all my friends go. And then it's like when they came back, I'm like, yes, my turn. But it's just, I was in where people just stopped talking about it. It just slowly faded away. I had that passion in my heart still. And then it was just, like no one knows about, no one knows what Operation Inherent Resolve is to this day. You can go ask any Republican or Democrat. They have no idea that we're still there. I'm still focusing, looking at the body counts still, or the casualties, the what's going on. And it still hits me to this day. You got any questions?
Yeah, it's well, I did have a question for you. It's not every day you get to speak to one who has earned the illustrious Green Beret, and we just wanted to know what it was like serving with them. I mean, I was supply in the Navy, and you know, not saying what I did important, but just to be here talking to you. I mean, it would just be an honor if you could talk to us more about
Yeah,
that.
I'd love to. Yeah, maybe I could recruit somebody out there. So, Green Berets, their specialty is unconventional warfare, and so, a lot of people see movies and they think of all the cool guy stuff, and typically there are more SEALs that do movies than Green Berets. It's just the way it is, and that's real kind of sexy stuff. They're underwater and they come up out of the water with their guns and all that, and there's a need for that. But what we do is we operate in very small units, and we go out into the hinterlands of whatever country that is that we're going into. And people don't understand this, but in the beginning of Afghanistan, there were several teams of 12-man teams of Green Berets that won that particular phase of the war. They pushed the Taliban back on their heels, just using people on the ground, relationships, creating armies, and then going out and then going after the people that were responsible for 9/11, but also that were oppressing that nation. The motto for Green Berets is "De oppresso liber," which is Latin for "to free the oppressed." But that's not the only thing we do. We do foreign internal defense. We cover down on weapons of mass destruction, seaburn issues, you name it, we do it. So it's you kind of a Swiss Army knife, if you will. We take guys like me that were former enlisted guys that did other things, typically combat arms, and come from the Rangers and the paratroopers, and from other units as support staff, and then we create this ability to be force multipliers because you don't travel with a lot of people. It's 12 people on a detachment typically that are doing the heavy lifting, and that 12-person detachment is capable of operating at a battalion size level, which is 600 some odd people by using multiplication. But it's done out there for days and months on end, out there in the middle of nowhere in the mountains of Pakistan, Afghanistan, on the border, or the deserts of Iraq or Syria, Southeast Asia. I mean, I've been to every continent now. The process is really long to become a Green Beret. It's not, thousands of people will apply, and maybe you'll get 100 or so that'll make it to selection, and then from that you'll whittle it down to very few that will make it through the whole year and a half course, year to year and a half, depending on what MOS skill you have. And so, mine was 18 Alpha, which is a commander, and then also because of my medical training and licensure, I was able to work as a flight surgeon, but I've also commanded as well.
Yeah. I've actually seen that.
Wow.
My flight surgeon.
That's a lot of really good information because, like you said, in the beginning of that, you see most of what people get about the special forces they get in movies.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of great SEAL movies, but the only Green Beret movie I can think of is Rambo, and that paints you in a really bad light. So.
Yeah. Yeah, and that wasn't really a team movie, what we actually do. It just
really the best ones. The best that paint like any of these special warfare just actually have to go to books. I'm a big Tom Clancy fan, so I mean,
yeah,
and it's really great.
He does a good job.
Yeah, and if I didn't, it was great if I had like questions and everything. Dad, recon, read this and let me know. And then I get a few things out of him.
We work in the shadows, and so that's why a lot of people don't know what we do, which we want it that way. We don't want them to understand that because many of our things are clandestine or covert. So we wouldn't want people to understand our techniques, our tactics, our practices, because that gives away that stuff to the enemy. So we try to avoid that, and you'll see that. That's why it's not known really well.
Well, it's very impressive. I was avionics, and we did work with Navy SEALs. We did work with a lot of shoot. They would be right across the street from my base in Coronado, and I remember just sitting there, going on the beach and just looking at them because they were so pretty. Female there, but I remember though I was having trouble because I got injured really bad. I was in a wheelchair for part of my enlistment. And they didn't have sidewalks everywhere, and you're in a wheelchair, and there's no sidewalk ramps a lot on base. Those guys, you didn't even have you could just go, and they would get you where you needed to go if they saw you in a wheelchair and you needed help as a sailor. Then, whereas your normal shipmates would just walk away, there's a different kind of ethic.
Yeah, a different kind of mentality. Whenever you ask them for help, even. I know we had a couple of prior special forces people in my command on the USS Lake Champlain, and if you would ask them for help or training on anything, they would go above and beyond to make sure you knew.
Yeah.
We had a gunner's mate who was he worked the armory for SWIC for a short time, and we would ask for like on the 50 cal. He would go so far as to hand draw an entire diagram of the whole ship and for one person. This wasn't just for a group of people. He would do it for any one person who asked him for it.
Yeah, be prepared. It's really like that. If you ask them a question, you want to know something, you're going to learn it and you're going to know it. And that's what I do respect about special forces. But after your military service, you moved on to the border. And would you like to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Yeah. So I was assigned to a special operations detachment in Texas. Texas has the 12th largest army in the world, and kind of proud of that. In the National Guard system, we have
I actually knew that.
Green Beret units. We have everything from aviation all the way down to paratroopers. We have our own unit there. So divisions of infantry and armor and all those things. So on that border, though, our job was to conduct LPOPs, it's called, so listening post observation posts, and to look for things that come across that are nefarious in nature, be it cartels, guns, money going south, fentanyl coming north, human trafficking, slave trafficking, and to identify those, to notify the local law enforcement and DPS partners, public safety people, of those situations. And so we weren't Border Patrol. We didn't do that. We assisted the Border Patrol, but we try to look for the needle in the stack of needles. When there are 12,000 people coming across 1,248 miles of border, that's every week. That's a lot. And that's when I was down there. It's 3 times as many now. So we look at it as an invasion. We can't sustain that number of people coming across. You just can't with our infrastructure. So we have to, make sure that the bad stuff doesn't come through. That's what we did. Yeah, so it was a great job because it was my last job, and it was actually protecting the U.S. border and not somebody else's border.
So we had a lot of that when we were in San Diego dealing with the border, and we were dealing with the border, especially out in Yuma. We had a lot of my Marine friends were out there on the border there, and they don't realize the amount of artillery 10 years ago that the cartel had. I remember that we actually had a safety stand down where they kidnapped one of our sailors and everything, and they set her back in pieces, and nothing was done. We were absolutely outraged. The amount, how bad the border was 10 years ago, and looking at it now, I am just astounded how out of hand that it's gotten. I believe that it was war on drugs. That's what we were slated for, and everything we had to do with the border, we would do on that, but it was barely doing anything, and we just watched it. It was horrible.
Yeah, our legislators have failed us. Our government has failed us. They've betrayed us in many ways, and it's getting brought to light. Shows like this and others. We that's what I do now. I go up and talk to all the legislators I knew when I was up there on the Hill speaking to the Speaker of the House. I got to know all of them, and when I did, now I go back and they run and hide, and that's okay. We're going to hold their feet to the fire, and when I'm the president of the Republic of Texas, they'll listen.
You got my vote, by the way.
I'm gonna put that in the banner.
Yes.
Lieutenant Colonel Pete Chambers announces his campaign.
Vote for Pedro.
Yeah.
If you vote for me, all of your wildest dreams will come true.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, I want that shirt so bad now. It has a great.
Yeah.
Yes, making shirts. We're getting ready for you, man. Okay.
Yeah.
I want to say that is that that brought up a great topic. Is that when you're enlisted versus when you are an officer, because you were an officer. If I sat there and said something about, hey, this isn't right, I tell you what, there was no due process. You couldn't sit there and say, you couldn't even put in an inquiry, you couldn't question orders, because there were some unethical things that I saw, some things that the American people should know. And I remember asking that, and my senior chief said, Barbara, if you stir the pot, think it's going to come back on you. And I was like, honey, if you don't stir the pot, the bottom gets burnt. That's what I told him.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, you don't have the experience or the knowledge or the know-how to sit there and ask questions on what's going on at the border. And then if you even ratted a chit about it or anything like that to see if it was an actual lawful, they just gone. You had no due process. You couldn't question the orders. And there were things that were wrong. Like what the fact is at HSM 40, we sold all of our aircraft to the Saudis. Guess where they are? Afghanistan. And I watched it. And when I questioned that, like, shouldn't the American people know this? What happened? I was supposed to sign a page 13 on it, or Article 15 is what they call it, either or. And they forgot to get it to me because I was sent TAD there. I was like, we should tell the American people this. And now that I didn't sign it, I guess I'll talk about it. Where did that money go? We sold commands. We were depositionings, our Bravos, our Foxtrots. It was ridiculous. And I remember I just got reamed for it, just asking questions. Do you think that there's a different climate for an enlisted versus an officer? Do y'all get to challenge orders more? Because we're apparently too stupid.
Well, they're not challenging orders more. Why is there only 3 whistleblowers on the Defense Medical Epidemiology database when we have hundreds of providers across the country in the military? It's because they're cowards. You are supposed to challenge orders. You're supposed to challenge something that's unlawful. But the military looks at it like this. All orders are considered lawful. That means you really got to do your homework in order to challenge it. Because if you just challenge it and just say, well, I think, well, that's not going to work. You've got to have an IG complaint. You've got to come in with data. You've got to come in with all this stuff to challenge it. It's what they want you, require you to do. I just had it all in my head because I've done it for so long that I knew it. So when I was able to challenge the general, I was able to do it with data. I didn't just say that's an unlawful order. I said, according to Army Regulation 40-562, Chapter 8, Paragraph 4 through 6, it states this, sir. And so
right.
You have to have those things ready to go before you challenge somebody, because otherwise you're going to get shot down.
Yeah,
so,
it's your feelings. But even if you come with rules and regulations, like I was in medical, okay, at the BMR, the BMed, and the NAVMed, literally state if you are convalescent past 90 days, you are to transfer to a medical command. They wouldn't let me. And so I understood to cross my T's and dot my I's, and then I would carry around my own logbook. And if something happened in the command, I would notate it, take it down to the quarterdeck, and have the quarterdeck personnel sign it and time it, and then transfer that to the command logbook. I've known how to do that. And even with the things that we're focusing on with the VA, with the OIG reports, the Government Accountability Office reports the closed doors hearings, like with Seth Moulton, with the 4,000 out of the 5,000 VA police officers, are dirty because of Obama's Second Chance Act. He hired dirty cops. We know how to do that, but even still, it's like there's this mentality. Oh, you're.
Yeah, I like to bring up another thing. You said that you're saying what's right is it is the E3 and below, it is the E4s that are challenging orders, and good as of now, a good majority of them are bringing their facts to them when they challenge these orders. Where is our leadership to back us up?
Right. Well, that's the $1 million question, and unfortunately, under different administrations, there was a flavor that was lifted up to the higher ranks. And so people get squashed by a shadow regulation system, a shadow policy system that basically says this: if we wanted you to have an opinion, we would have issued you one. Right?
That's the best thing I've heard. That's exactly
right. And so that's the way it looks. I mean, that's just the bottom line. So
when you're bringing regulation, sorry,
yeah, well,
I'm just saying the way it is. Bringing regulation, it's no longer opinion.
Right.
Doesn't matter.
You can set your choices.
Right, and it doesn't matter to them, and that's the problem. And so, good leaders, because I've seen good leaders from 1983 on, I know what it looks like, and so it's hard for them to challenge me face to face. They won't. They just say, "Well, you're fired," and so there's no challenge. And it doesn't, because the first show that I got on while I was still in uniform was
I don't think Lieutenant
with Alex Jones, and so when you get on Alex Jones, you wake people up. And that made them real nervous because now you got an angry Green Beret that is speaking out. And that's where more and more people in the military, higher ranks, started stepping up because they got emboldened, right? That's just combat. Everybody's afraid on the battlefield. There's no doubt. But it's those ones that step forward and act in that fear that others will follow. And that's why we've got to change that culture, because the military and the Department of Defense has allowed certain legislators through the National Defense Authorization Acts to use the military as a testing ground for society to change with all these policies and classes and things that really mean nothing about closing with and destroying the enemy, which is what we're supposed to do.
Yeah, we're seeing that, and if you go against the orders, the Secretary of Defense came out mid-pandemic and said that these pretty much these right-wing extremist thoughts are a clear and present danger within our armed forces. I have that report as well, which comes back down to Napolitano's policies under Obama. I mean, I've gone down the rabbit hole.
And you have to, you have to understand that those things are Hegelian dialectics, and that's what synthesize a different mindset, because everybody gets caught up in arguing over semantics. And when they do that, that is a Marxist technique that demoralizes. And when you demoralize, that's step number one. And then now we see this push towards this Marxist ideology, which we don't operate under. We're not Marxists. We are a constitutional republic. And until we get that back in line, we're going to be fighting this fight every day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you did mention something about policies, and that's something that we've noticed in the VA, and it's always been there, is that policies are overriding the Constitution. And I realize that Veteran Affairs acts like they're a private business, not a federal institution. And they don't have they have red flag laws on all veterans that use VA, by the way. And that's something that we've taken up the fight. To fight ourselves, because it's about ruined our lives. And my daughter is 2 years old and she's not free in this country because of red flag law. She was born into tyranny, and I cannot stand it. It keeps me up at night.
I'd say it's all but ruined our lives.
Yeah.
Yeah, just because it's something that we live. A hospital is not something you should have to live with every day, and the decisions thereof.
Right, and I live with it all the time because I've been waiting 10 years still since my departure from service to get fit. I just had my legs done, my shoulder done. I still need my hip and my knee done because I was hit pretty bad. And it's like dangled in front of you, like, get it, do what we say, or you're never going to get fixed. and
Right.
I'd rather die on my feet than bow down. I would, because none of it's constitutional. It even says so in their own policies. This is unethical. I was like, what? I could believe it.
Yeah.
I did have a question though. When it came to the vaccine, what are your thoughts on the Nuremberg trials and the vaccine? Have you looked
Okay,
into
so
that?
that is the Nuremberg trial created the Nuremberg Code, which was
Yeah.
in 1947. And so what that said is that item number one in there, it's very simple, is you cannot do experimental tests on people without their consent. That's rule number one in the Nuremberg Code. That is it. And so when I was talking to Senator Johnson and I said, "Hey, sir, I changed my email address and it's Nuremberg 2.0 doc," and he went, and that was a while back, and now he's coming on board. And so and when we say that, what that means is that there are consequences for actions, and those are still emergency use authorizations. There's never been a vial of Comirnaty produced on any military installation in this country, yet they say that that's approved. Well, the they is the Department of Defense. Terry Aderim is the Secretary of Defense's vice commander, not commander, vice second in charge of the Defense Health Agency. She just stepped down because she wrote a letter to the Department of Defense saying that they're all equal, that it doesn't matter. If you give Pfizer, you give Moderna, they're all approved. Well, she broke the law in doing that. And we've got court cases going on specifically about Terry Aderim. She is part of the evil empire. And she will, in this case, I promise you, she will sit before a Nuremberg-like committee, and it's going on right now in D.C., and it's not called that. It's called something else. It's being headed up by legislators up on the Hill. And I'm working with them in an ancillary way to make sure that information like that gets to them, but not just me, many of us. And so that's what the good leaders are doing. Whether I'm out of uniform or not, I haven't quit on the military. I haven't quit on my soldiers. I haven't quit on anybody that serves in this country. So as long as there's people like us out there, I'll just call it white hats, even though I'm wearing a black one. We're good guys, and that's where I want to give hope, because sometimes, if you just talk about and you bellyache and carry on about all the bad stuff, everybody gets disenfranchised and demoralized, and that means the Marxists win. So we don't want them to win. So when I look at my buddy and they tell me, and this has happened downrange, 24 of us in a compound in Afghanistan, and the ISR comes overhead and sends us a communication, says, "Hey, you got 300 Taliban inbound." And we look at each other and smile and go, yeah, target rich environment, right? Because if you give up because you're in the minority, then you suck. I mean, I hate to call them out, but I have.
You have all accountability.
Absolutely.
I mean, I don't understand that. We hold ourselves accountable even as enlisted personnel. Why? Because there's always someone's life depends on it. We don't join the military because we want to be, something better for ourselves. It's just usually you figure out later on down the road is that you're really joining for the person to your left and to your right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because I know there's people that I couldn't even stand in the military, but at least we had the understanding that, hey, if anything goes wrong, I get to kill you, not the enemy. It was still that camaraderie. It was but I
as it should be
at this point.
Yeah. There's one last thing I wanted to ask you about, and that was the SEALs versus DoD case that you're a fact witness for. Can you tell us anything about that?
Absolutely. So that was a Tampa case. It was a district court for the federal jurisdiction of the southeastern United States. That was Judge Meraday. The lawyer was Matt Staver with Liberty Counsel. And he asked two of us whistleblowers to testify. And I was the first witness put on the stand as a fact witness. And what we were trying to show was to help our SEAL brethren out who did not want to take the shot, who had put in waivers requests, and they weren't even being looked at. Matter of fact, we figured that out later on. Other people did, that the waivers weren't even looked at. They just stamped them all and just said, no, sucks to be you. All right. So that's what they did. So what we did was we called them out with facts as a fact witness and said, this is what you're doing, and we caught you. And the Department of Justice attorneys that were representing the government there tried to, pull some shenanigans and not let us testify because we weren't approved and this and that. But for a fact witness is different than an expert witness. You got to approve an expert witness. But a fact witness, all I got to say is, number one, I had 6,000 soldiers under me on the border. I proved that the shots were ineffective. They were not safe. And I was able to do it by lesser intrusive means, which means I told my soldiers, when you're looking at 12,000 people coming across a week and none of them have been tested for COVID and none of them are wearing masks, guess what? You gotta, because we didn't wear masks because it's hot. You're wearing body armor for 8-hour shifts at a time. You're not going to do that. But we did good medicine, good preventative medicine. And when they didn't take the shots, they did fine. The ones that did come in that had the shots, there was a 67% chance higher for them that if they were double vaxxed, they were the ones that were going to be sick. So I was able to prove that with my numbers. And then that just put them on their heels and said, well, no more questions, Your Honor. Well, because you can't handle the truth, right? I mean, that's
exactly. That's true. Yeah. Well, we fight in a different way. We have a wonderful bill, Blackburn, called the Demand Veteran Healthcare Freedom Act, because we don't necessarily get to go to the doctors we want. We're held hostage by the VA. So I get it. We travel all over Texas. We've gotten thousands of signatures. So I can understand a little bit. I'm so exhausted right now, even because it's getting there. It has to get it done. And, there is opposition on sometimes. And then there's other people that yay, you're doing the right thing. But is finding other people to stand up with you. Yes, it's very hard because they feel like our veteran community feels like, oh, well, if I stand up, I'm going to lose my benefits too. And, it's what you're going to give up your freedoms for money.
Right.
I don't. So,
well, it's all part of the fight. I mean, you have different lines of effort, and everybody's got to, do their part. I don't care if you're just at home and you don't feel like getting out of your chair. Well, then at least make phone calls or at least talk to people about this. But don't just sit there and bellyache and complain and not have a solution. Because if you don't, I don't have no time to listen to you.
Exactly. I'm not the same way. I'm sorry to say that. Don't waste my time. Because I got to get this done. Because honestly, people's lives are depending on it. The last VA wait time scandals killed 307,000 veterans in an OIG report that was revealed, and the fact that it's back again just because it's being because they can't stand Trump, because it was Trump's Mission Act that gave us that freedom. I know Trump saved my arm. God bless him for that. But it's my turn. I saw something that was wrong and that needed to be fixed. I had all the documentation showing that they are starting to falsify the wait times again. So I have to get out there and I got to do it. We've even got FOIA on a local clinic here where they falsify.
And we'll see if it comes back.
So,
yeah, good luck.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I understand I'll be honest, personally, to me, what you did, it gives me courage and motivation that maybe I'm going and doing the right thing, because we actually have lawyers on it too. So hopefully we'll get somewhere. And I tell you what, we've had some great feedback. Wesley Hunt, he's very aware and he's being very communicative with us. And then Morgan Luttrell is for veterans. Hopefully we can get somewhere. However, Paul Betancourt has working on a bill for me. He's still working on it to try to draft it, because they're using state and local police to carry out red flag policy on veterans. So we're trying to draft some legislation with that.
Oh, yes, tons of legislation going around all over the place. And again, Paul Betancourt, his office is so small. we can't even get through to the drafting hearings.
And they're so nice too about it. But what I'm worried about is all these brave men and women that are serving is once they get out, because of what our current Secretary of Defense says. If you believe, you stand up against abortion, you stand up against the border, if you stand up for Pro 2A, you're considered a right-wing extremist, and then boom, they're slated and they're held captive under red flag law. That's very disturbing, because I have those DHS documents and the FBI report, Making Prevention a Reality 2017 report that shows that. It's alarming, and I don't want our men and women that are coming through that. But is there any way, if anyone's interested to help support you, what could they do?
Yeah, there's a place where you can go and look at the website, and the website is called drpetechambers.com, Pete, P-E-T-E,
On the bottom.
chambers.com. Yeah. And if you go there, there's my lines of effort, and there's a way to contact me on there. I get hit by hundreds a week. I do answer them. It takes me time because I'm still, out there doing stuff. I'm currently on my way to Ohio to the where the train had the derailment, and we've got some Green Berets that are out now, like me. That's one of our specialties is hazmat, and we still have our equipment, and we're going to go up there and actually get a real assessment of what's going on, so that we can counter what the government's assessment said it was safe, that the water was safe, that the land was safe. And then we didn't just do that. We took it a step further, and we're linking up with a team that does soil reclamation to help out local people who have farms and ranches, and their animals are dying and their plants are going to die. And so we want to make sure that we give them solutions so that they can reclaim the soil and get back to their lives, because this is the biggest, one of the biggest EPA violations in history. Environment. And they talk about carbon dioxide being the thing, and they don't mind exploding chemicals in the sky. Doesn't make sense.
I know. I remember watching that. So I was 3 months old when I was at Camp Lejeune. So just to let you know, I have gastroparesis, so my stomach paralyzes all the time. I remember watching that and looking at the home videos people were, because I was really deep in it. I was like, this is like Camp Lejeune. And hazmat doesn't necessarily affect you just yourself. It can affect you up to maybe the third and fifth generation, is what we're finding through the Camp Lejeune exposures. People don't know with Camp Lejeune about the graveyard called Baby Heaven. That's right up there, which is hundreds and hundreds of dead babies. And I thought of that when I saw that in Ohio. I was just in prayer because of all those chemicals. And then I just want to say thank you for your team for going down there or up there.
Yeah.
Because exposure like that, even to their person, is a heavy risk. It is even a heavy risk on their family and their future. And may God bless you all for it.
Oh, yeah.
Guys, if you're watching again, please go to his website, drpetechambers.com. See how you can get involved, especially with, you just heard his efforts.
And there's a lot of great information on his website. His entire informed consent briefing is on that website, and it is phenomenal. You got to go check that out.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's wrapping up our hour. Doc, if you ever need a platform, please call us anytime. I appreciate having you. No, we're small. Just starting. It was just a pleasure talking with you and hearing your military service. I'm so honored again to have met you.
Thank you for linking me up with some other folks too, because the more we get the word out, this is what I call in the special operations unconventional warfare world, this is called the IO campaign. Information.
Yes. So, I've got a few more for you, by the way, if you are interested.
Well, I'll be off the grid for the next few days, but yeah, after I get back, that'd be great.
There's emails, sir. It'll be there waiting.
Awesome.
All right.
You take care.
Y'all have a good one. Take care.
Bye-bye.
See ya.
All right, guys, we heard it from Dr. Pete Chambers tonight. Wow.
Wow. Just a fantastic person doing everything that he can, that he's able to, and just wow.
I can't even find my final thoughts, and I've had some good ones lately. Guys, this is the spirit of America. I would say this is what veterans are. I even know this with my own family. You know, even though you finish your service of enlistment, you still have to find that purpose to get out there and serve. And because you see all the nonsense that's going on in here in America, if you have like any convictions and want to reach out, we actually know several organizations that could actually fit with you. Like if you have things with the like abortion that you wanted to do with, if you had had anything with medical freedom, we have a lot of contacts there. If you want to get out and serve your community and get involved, it's time to get up off the couch. I would agree. And if you can't get off the couch, like Doc said, call your congressman.
There's something for everybody to do.
Right.
There truly is. Just doesn't matter if you are if you're weak, strong, sick. Doesn't matter. There's a job for you out here.
Exactly. Well, we're gonna leave Dr. Pete Chambers' website up there, guys. Again, go check it out. We're gonna go ahead and cover events that are coming up this week. Texas and Webster with Daniel Miller is happening next week on the 19th. It's 311 Pennsylvania Avenue in Webster, Texas. Morgan Luttrell Town Hall will be happening the 22nd of February, 600 Street in Willis, Texas.
And don't about the Sacred Birth Symposium happening March 11th through the 12th at Casa de Luz 1701 Toomey Road in Austin, Texas. Now remember, if you're a veteran, get in touch with us, reach out to us on our email. We can get a discount code, get you 33% off of that event.
And that discount code is actually 33 vets.
Oh, 33 save vets.
Yeah, 33 save vets. And I'll give you their banner for the symposium. We are going to go there. So that's the Sacred Birth Symposium. Again, contact us. If you can't remember the code, it's 33 save vets. And we'll see you out there. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on our program, and good night.
Let me be the first to congratulate you on a job well done and call you a United States Marine. Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name. Do solemnly swear. To support and defend. The Constitution of the United States. Against all enemies. Foreign and domestic. And to bear true faith. And allegiance to the same. That I will obey. The orders of. The President of the United States. And the orders of. Those officers appointed over me according to regulations and the Uniform Code of Military Justice. So help me God.